Okay, so ready to dive into a world where, like, your TikTok feed could help crack a cold case.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're talking hashtag justice,
Hashtag justice.
armchair detectives,
Algorithms.
ethics are all colliding.
It's a fascinating space. And what's so interesting is that true crime has always been around, right?
Of course.
But social media has, like, turbocharged it. You know,
Mhm.
think about the Gabby Petito case.
Right.
That one TikTok video analyzing her van footage sparked a nationwide search, and the hashtag #FindGabby,
Oh, yeah.
it hit 700 million views.
It's crazy how fast things go viral these days.
Yeah,
And how much power social media has.
it's incredible.
But as we know, the Petito case also had a dark side.
It did.
Reddit users wrongly accused a missing man.
Yeah.
And his family faced death threats because of it.
Exactly. That's the thing, right? It highlights the double-edged sword of social media in true crime.
For sure.
It can be incredibly helpful in solving cases, but it can also destroy lives. So today we're really going to try to unpack this complex intersection of true crime and social media
Yeah.
and how these viral trends, algorithms, and digital vigilantes are changing the rules of crime storytelling.
So let's start with the sheer scale of it all.
Okay.
I mean, true crime is a $30 billion industry.
Wow.
Add social media to the mix,
Uh-huh.
and you've got TikTok's hashtag truecrimetok with 15 billion views.
It's huge.
People are glued to these short videos about unsolved cases,
Right.
like the Delphi murders
Yeah.
or Asha Degree.
I should agree. It's fascinating how these videos are crafted.
Yeah.
They often use, like, eerie music and these mystery hooks
Oh, for sure.
to draw viewers in, sometimes even more effectively than a well-researched documentary.
Right.
And because TikTok's algorithm prioritizes shock value, a 15-second unverified theory can get more reach than something that's been thoroughly investigated.
So it's almost like entertainment is winning out over truth.
It's a concern, right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is really what matters in these cases.
Yeah, and it's not just TikTok.
No, it's not.
Right.
Instagram has its own thing going on.
It does with those pastel-colored infographics, breaking
Yeah.
down cases like John Benet Ramsey's
Yes, aesthetic sleuthing.
aesthetic sleuthing.
Millions of likes, but some argue it really trivializes these tragedies.
Right.
Plus, we've seen how an influencer's post labeling a victim's sibling as suspicious led to harassment and a defamation lawsuit.
Oh, wow.
It just shows how damaging these online accusations can be.
Yeah.
This isn't a game. This is real life with real consequences for people.
And then you've got Twitter,
Yeah.
where every high-profile trial, like the Alex Murdaugh case, turns into a global spectacle.
It's true.
Hashtags are trending worldwide, and
Yeah.
people are live tweeting their verdict predictions.
It's like we're all playing judge and jury from our pouches.
Yes.
The question is, are we getting closer to the truth,
Mhm.
or are we just creating more noise?
Yeah. Are we
Yeah.
helping or hurting?
Cases like the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing come to mind. Reddit users wrongly identified Sunil Tripathi as a suspect.
And tragically, he had already passed away before the bombing even happened.
Exactly. And yet, his family was bombarded with hate mail based on that false identification.
It's just awful.
It is, and we see similar patterns today.
Yeah.
Think about the 2022 Idaho murders.
Right.
TikTok was flooded with theories,
Yeah, I remember.
many based on scrutinizing victim Kaylee Goncalves' Instagram.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
People were accusing her ex-boyfriend sending tips to the police that actually hampered the investigation.
And for the families, it's like being re-victimized. You
Oh,
know,
they're
he's
being-
grieving, and then they have to avoid social media to escape the constant speculation and the misuse of their loved ones' images.
We spoke with a victim's advocate
We did.
who highlighted the trauma that this causes.
It's really devastating.
Yeah. And on the flip side, social media can sometimes be a force for good.
It can.
Remember when TikTok users helped identify a suspect in the 1998 murder of Angie Hausman by resurfacing old news clips?
That was incredible.
It's a real dilemma.
It is a dilemma.
So what's the solution? Should platforms ban all speculative true crime content
It's tough.
to protect victims and prevent the spread of misinformation?
That raises free speech concerns, right? And crowdsourcing does have the potential to solve cases.
Right.
Finding a middle ground is tough.
Yeah.
Maybe fact-check labels for unverified claims could be a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's a conversation that needs to involve both the companies and the users.
And it's a complex issue, especially when you consider the money involved.
Oh, absolutely.
Netflix's Dahmer series earned $1 billion in just 60 days.
$1 billion.
YouTubers are monetizing 911 calls.
It's wild.
And Spotify even have playlists that combine true crime with ASMR.
Right. Murder in Magnolias. Can you believe it?
It's a lot.
And then there are Facebook groups charging for exclusive case breakdowns.
It's led to this whole debate about trauma commodification.
Yeah, is it entertainment or is it exploitation?
It makes you wonder, at what point does it become exploitation?
Right.
Are we consuming other people's tragedies for entertainment?
It's an uncomfortable question, but one we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The algorithms actually reward creators who use the most sensational content.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A video titled "Gruesome Jane Doe Decapitation" will get way more clicks than "Jane Doe, a Life Remembered."
So platforms are essentially profiting from the most gruesome and exploitative content.
It's a vicious cycle.
And we as consumers are part of that cycle.
We are part of it.
If we stopped engaging with the most exploitative content, platforms would have to take notice.
They would have no choice.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a lot to think about.
It is.
And the technology is getting more advanced, which makes things even more complicated.
Yeah.
We're talking about a future where you could experience crime scenes in virtual reality,
Wow.
interact with AI versions of perpetrators,
That's crazy.
and solve cases in virtual worlds.
It's already happening.
Really?
Deepfakes are getting incredibly sophisticated.
Wow.
There was even a case in the UK where a fake audio clip of a missing teenager confessing to running away confused investigators.
Oh my gosh.
We're entering a world where we might not be able to tell what's real and what's fabricated.
So are we essentially outsourcing justice to AI?
It's a possibility, and it's a bit concerning.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong there?
That's a big concern. Relying on AI for justice raises the risk of wrongful convictions based on flawed algorithms.
Yeah.
Imagine a future where juries are replaced by VR headsets and an AI determines someone's guilt or innocence.
This deep dive is making me want to disconnect and go off the grid for a while.
I hear you.
But we can't just ignore this.
No, we can't.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the first step is recognizing that social media is both a tool for justice and a weapon for chaos.
It's both.
It's up to us as consumers and creators to demand accountability, think critically, and remember the human lives behind every viral story.
Well said. Before we wrap up this first part, I think it's important to acknowledge that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
We've only scratched the surface of this complex issue.
Absolutely. There's so much more to unpack, and we'll continue to explore these ideas further in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fascinating. Welcome back to our deep dive into #justice.
Where true crime and social media and justice itself are all kind of getting blurry.
It's a lot to unpack.
Before we went off the deep end, we were talking about AI and algorithms.
Right. All those potential pitfalls of relying too heavily on them.
Yeah, to solve crimes.
Yeah, and how, like, profiting off of other people's tragedies is just ethically murky.
For sure.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about what we can do about all of this.
Because it can feel really overwhelming, right? It's like, how do we actually navigate this space responsibly?
Right.
When it seems like every scroll could be contributing to the problem.
Well, it all comes down to being a more mindful consumer of true crime content. Okay, so that makes sense. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, first and foremost, always fact check before you share anything.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Don't just blindly trust what you see on TikTok or Instagram.
Right.
Especially those like attention-grabbing headlines.
Those headlines are like clickbait traps.
They are.
You get drawn in, and then it turns out to be completely false.
Exactly. So take a few minutes to verify the information from like reputable sources
Okay.
before you contribute to the spread of misinformation.
Right.
Remember, just because something has gone viral
Yeah.
doesn't make it true.
Popularity does not equal accuracy.
Exactly. And here's another one. Be aware of your own biases.
Well, that's a good one.
We all have them, right?
Yeah, we do.
And they can really influence how we interpret information, especially in these like emotionally charged cases.
Yeah, because it's easy to get swept up in a narrative,
Total.
especially when it's presented in a compelling way.
Right. With the music and the visuals and
Yeah, but we have to challenge ourselves to consider different perspectives.
right.
And look for evidence that both supports and contradicts our initial assumptions.
Don't just jump on the bandwagon.
Exactly. Think critically.
Yeah.
Avoid making judgments based on incomplete information.
And if you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to reach out to experts or fact-checking organizations.
Yeah, there are resources out there to help you sort it all out.
Okay, so that's about being a smart consumer.
Right.
What about the platforms themselves?
Right.
What can we do to hold them accountable for promoting ethical content?
Well, I think for starters, we can demand more transparency.
Transparency.
We need to push for platforms to be more open about how their algorithms work.
Yeah, because right now it feels like a black box.
It does. We don't know how content gets prioritized or why some accounts get more visibility.
Yeah, and that lack of transparency can be really problematic.
It can, especially when you consider how algorithms can amplify harmful content.
Like conspiracy theories.
Yeah, unfounded accusations. It's a mess.
So we need to pressure these companies to prioritize accuracy and ethical considerations
Absolutely.
over engagement and profit.
Right, because right now, it feels like profit is the main driver.
For sure.
Maybe that means pushing for changes in how they monetize true crime content,
Yeah.
like a stricter vetting process for advertisers,
Okay.
or limits on the types of content that can be monetized.
And we also have to remember, we vote with our attention.
We do.
If we stop engaging with the most exploitative content,
Yeah.
platforms will have to take notice.
They'll have no choice.
Hitting them where it hurts
Their bottom line.
might be the most effective way to get their attention.
It might be, and on a more positive note,
Yeah.
we can support creators who are approaching true crime with a sensitivity and respect for the victims.
Yes. Follow those accounts.
Yeah, amplify the voices of survivors and their families.
Like accounts like End Violence Now,
Exactly.
or other organizations working to support victims.
Right. Use our platforms for good.
And don't be afraid to speak up. If you see something that feels exploitative or unethical, call it out.
Leave a comment.
Yeah.
Report the content. Contact the platform directly.
We have a collective responsibility here
We do.
to make this space safer and more ethical.
This isn't just about entertainment.
I-
It's about real people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their stories deserve to be treated with respect.
Dignity not exploited for clicks and views.
I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
It is a lot to take in.
But when we come back, we're going to be talking about the future of true crime.
Yes! The future.
How emerging technologies like virtual reality and AI could change everything.
Buckle up.
It's going to be a fascinating and honestly a little bit unnerving conversation.
It's gonna be wild.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into #justice.
Where true crime and social media collide.
And justice gets real murky.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have from digital detectives to ethical dilemmas,
Algorithms and ASMR playlists.
then AI and VR on the horizon.
So much to think about.
Before we wrap up, we wanted to leave you with something to ponder.
Yeah, something to chew on.
As you continue to scroll and engage with true crime online,
Because this conversation isn't over.
it's an ongoing dialogue.
And we need you to be a part of it.
So here's the question.
What does the future of true crime look like?
In this crazy digital world,
Will we see VR juries
whoa,
immersed in crime scenes?
hyper-realistic but potentially manipulated,
Will AI finally solve Jack the Ripper?
or the Zodiac Killer?
What happens when truth and fabrication are indistinguishable?
That's scary.
It is. We're already seeing deepfakes blurring the lines.
And it's happening so fast.
The implications are huge.
For justice, for truth, for everything.
It feels like we're not ready
Which is why we need to talk about it now,
before it's too late.
before the tech takes over,
Our choices today will shape the future of true crime.
and the future of justice.
So as you scroll TikTok,
Or listen to your favorite podcast.
remember to be critical.
Demand accountability.
And most importantly, never forget the human lives.
Behind every viral story,
Behind the hashtags,
behind the algorithms,
there are real people.
grappling with unimaginable pain,
Let's engage responsibly
with empathy.
and a commitment to the truth.
That's it for this deep dive into #justice.
Thanks for joining us,
We hope you learned something.
and that you'll think critically.
Engage ethically.
And remember, justice should never come at the expense of truth.
Empathy or human dignity.
Until next time, stay curious.
Stay critical.
Stay engaged.
And always remember, behind every viral crime story, there are real people learning to breathe again.